First ever chronic fatigue syndrome blood test receives 96% accuracy. This is huge news for the CFS community. Now, we are going to get deeper into this article today, but before we do, if you are new here, please welcome to Fitness with an Illness. My name is Ryan, and here on this channel, we like to talk about navigating a chronic illness and trying to pursue better health through our fitness, through our diet, and any other means possible, despite living with a crippling illness. If that sounds interesting to you, I would really appreciate it if you consider subscribing and joining the community in that way. Thank you very much. All right, so like I said, this is huge news. Now, before I get into the article, let me explain why this is huge news. For so many people battling with chronic fatigue syndrome, they are left in a world where most people do not even believe, sorry, here's my cat right here. Most people do not even believe that chronic fatigue syndrome is a real condition. For decades, going back even to the 80s, there are many people who battled with chronic fatigue syndrome and did not get a diagnosis, and doctors just dismissed them and said that they were tired. Even my grandma has friends who for years and years dealt with chronic fatigue syndrome, and doctors just said they were tired and had to go home and rest. And because the medical field did not see it as a legitimate condition. Now, thanks to COVID, apparently I'm holding the cat for a minute. She wants attention right now. To those of us in the world of chronic fatigue syndrome, we often go through this unforgiving cycle of trying to explain our illness to people, to try and tell people that our condition is real, and it can be incredibly exhausting. Now, thanks to COVID, there's been it's a good and a bad thing, but because of COVID, there was a big spike in long COVID or chronic fatigue cases. The two conditions overlap in a lot of ways, and they are very similar. Now, because of that overlap, it has led more doctors and scientists to look into chronic fatigue syndrome and take it more seriously because of the growing number of cases, which has been a blessing to the chronic fatigue community. And so this is fantastic news, especially if you are trying to get some kind of benefits or disability for your illness. Being able to have a diagnosis is incredibly beneficial. It makes that whole legal side of things so much easier to prove that you're sick. And honestly, hopefully in the general public, people will begin to slowly but surely see this as a legitimate illness. Now, in the public's eye, that is going to take a significant greater period of time to accomplish this. But we are moving in the right direction, and that is what matters. So that is why this is good news. Now, let's hop down into the article, okay? So let's start right here where it says, breakthrough could end years of medical uncertainty for severely ill patients. I mean, that is huge. It's huge in so many ways, because there are so many people who are battling with chronic fatigue or something similar, and not only like in my case, that is where I have landed with my diagnosis, is that is what I am sick with. But there are also so many people who spend years of their life trying to get a diagnosis, and you can waste thousands upon thousands of dollars trying to get a doctor just to see your condition as legitimate. So if we get to a point where this blood test becomes widely acceptable, this would be a huge, huge blessing to the community. So in a nutshell, here's what's going on. A 3D DNA blood test identified ME/CFS with about 96% accuracy in a small validation study. The strongest signals involve IL-2 and other immune signaling pathways, hinting at biological subtypes. The test builds on an existing lab platform used for cancer diagnostics, but remains experimental. Larger multi-center studies and independent replication are needed before clinical adoption. So that was my point, that if we get to a point where this test is widely accepted, that'll be a huge benefit. So we are still at the point of clinical trials. Nothing is set in stone, and your doctor is likely not going to be, your doctor's not going to have the capacity to be able to perform this test at this time. At least that is my understanding of this article. Now, After years of being told their crushing exhaustion might be all in their head, people with myalgic encephalomyelitis, I've never been able to say this word, encephalomyelitis, or chronic fatigue syndrome may finally have something they've desperately needed, a blood test that proves their illness is real. Scientists at the University of East Anglia have developed a test that correctly identifies the condition 96% of the time in severely affected patients. In a study of 24 bedridden or housebound ME/CFS patients and 45 healthy people, the test spotted the illness in 92% of cases while correctly ruling it out in 98% of healthy individuals. So, this is a fantastic start, in my opinion. Now, it does say it is good at identifying those who have a severe case where they are bedbound or housebound. And so, even for myself, I wonder what that looks like. At this moment, because of my medications, I am not bedbound. However, I know if I get off of those medications, I am bedbound. And so, I'm a little curious on what that might look like in my case, for example. I am mostly housebound, and so maybe it would still be able to pick it up. I hope so. Obviously, I'm not going to find out anytime soon. But the important thing with this is that we are moving in the right direction and that they are finding there's something within the blood test that they can actually measure that is pointing to the fact that somebody is sick with this illness. And so to me, that is a huge step in the right direction for the ME/CFS community. This article is incredibly long, and I don't want to bore you with the entire thing. I will link it below so that you can read through it yourself if you like. But the main thing I just wanted to say is that, for those of us battling with chronic fatigue syndrome, I think this is a huge step. I think we are moving in the right direction. And I want to just give you the hope and the encouragement that slowly but surely the world is beginning to recognize that chronic fatigue syndrome is a real condition. And the more people who get it after COVID, it's not a good thing that more people are getting it, but the one benefit in that is that it's getting more attention. And that is something that we can have hope in. We can look forward to the fact that the world is continuing to look more and more into this. And maybe eventually we'll be able to have a more readily accessible cure or something that will drastically help with the quality of life. So, my friends, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subbing. I try to talk about all things regarding health and fitness from the context of chronic fatigue or chronic illness in general. And so if you like that, please consider sticking around through a subscription. It really helps us out. And thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me. Please, God bless. Take care. And we'll see you in the next one. And I guess bye-bye from the cat, too.